everybody being here. And lastly, we will recognize Mr. Foster for your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman McKenzie, Ranking Member Omar, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Andy Foster, and I serve as Executive Officer of the California State Athletic Commission and multiple leadership positions within the Association of Boxing Commissions. I was also a professional fighter. Thank you for holding this important hearing for consideration of the Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act. Members of Congress, in 44 states right now, a professional boxer can fight 4, 6, or sometimes 8 rounds, get knocked unconscious, concussed, need stitches, suffered a broken orbital, or worse, and the check they're handed at the end of the night is literally $1. I've stood ringside and watched it happen. In some cases, fighters actually pay the promoter a fee just to be on the card. So they leave the venue worse off, both financially and physically, than when they arrived. Members of Congress, that's not a sport. That's sanctioned exploitation. In 2016, California said no more. The commission banned $1 contracts and set a minimum purse of $100 per scheduled round. In 2023, Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation that the commission sponsored that doubled purses to a minimum of $200 per round, the highest in the country. A 4-round fighter in California now walks away with at least $800. It's still modest money, but for the thousands of club-level fighters who keep this sport alive, it's enough money to get you home. H.R. 4624 would finally bring the rest of America to a reasonable floor, $150 per round, meaning $600 for a 4-rounder. That single provision would be the biggest pay raise the working class boxer has ever seen. But money's only part of the picture. Boxing injuries can be brutal and expensive. Too many promoters today carry $5,000 or $10,000 insurance policies. When a fighter needs an overnight hospital stay, an MRI, emergency surgery, those bills go unpaid and often get sent to the fighter himself. This bill fixes that by requiring every professional card in the country to carry at least $25,000 in no deductible medical coverage paid for by the promoter and not the athlete. That's real protection. That's what boxing needs. That will help boxing. The legislation also establishes the first federal medical baseline, an annual physical, dilated eye exam, and blood testing for hepatitis B, C, and HIV. California and a handful of other states already greatly exceed these standards, and the bill wisely lets us continue to do so, but no boxer in any state will again be cleared with just a quick blood pressure check and a handshake. The California State Athletic Commission voted unanimously to support this bill, and we particularly urge you to add one amendment that we've requested: an automatic inflation adjustment so that these person insurance minimums, these protections, don't erode over time. We also strongly back the Unified Boxing Organization framework in the bill. It gives fighters genuine choice in how they want to pursue titles without the crushing sanctioning fees that drain purses today. It gives the fighters a choice. Professional boxers put their health and their future on the line every single time they step through the ropes. H.R. 4624 says that their safety, their basic dignity, and their ability to pay a medical bill are not negotiable. California regulates more combat sports events than any other state in the country by a wide margin. And we are proud to stand with Congressman Jack and Congresswoman Davids, who is also a fighter, and the other members of Congress to support this bipartisan bill. Please pass this bill, add the inflation adjustment, and give American boxers the protection that they've earned in blood and sweat. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Under committee, Mr. Foster, I'll go to you next. Do want to talk about, with your long tenure in the industry and especially now as a regulator, how have you seen the boxing industry change since the passage of the Muhammad Ali boxing reform in 2000? And how do you believe that the changes that we are trying to correct can be remedied with the legislation that's being discussed today?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of the changes that I've saw have been somewhat negative over the years. Look, I mean, we lost HBO, we lost Showtime, we lost Fox, we lost ESPN. We're not on TV. The boxing's not on TV anymore. DAZN, they're based in the UK. They're broadcasting, but that's been one area. Another area that's been helpful is, you know, like Pat said, we have the suspension list, and now that BoxRec's doing it, we've got really good with communicating with the other states. We don't have fighters fighting on suspension. That's been helpful with the Reform Act. But one of the things, Mr. Chairman, when we talk about what happened in '96 and what happened in 2000, now we're in 2025, is not how much has changed, how much is still the same. The boxers are still being exploited. Look, it was $100 a round 25 years ago. I'm talking about the minimum standard, okay? I mean, dollar contracts are relatively, from my experience, a relatively newer type idea, giving the fighters the tickets to sell, and that's how you're paid, and making them do this kind of thing. And then this idea of having to use, whether you're going to have to use your money that you just made to pay the deductible to get your stitches done, these are not okay. And this bill addresses those particular issues. And just in final, because I'm running out of time here, I think that adding competition will help the industry, because the sanctioned organizations, it's interesting to me that their fees are all the same. Okay, or roughly all the same. The IBF will give you a break at 2% if you're the champion, I think. But the fees are essentially all the same. Isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting.
Thank you again. And for our next question.
Mr. Foster, in your written testimony, you discuss how the current four-belt system has created a self-serving incentive to emphasize the ranking of a few boxers at the top at the expense of competitive, entertaining matches that could grow the sport. Can you discuss how this bill would foster healthy competition in boxing?
Yes, thank you, Congressman. So to answer your question, sir, you have to understand the way that boxing works, the current system, the four-belt system. So what you have is you have a promoter who signs a fighter, and that's the promoter's fighter. And then this is early in their career. And so what happens is you look for that promoter will promote a fight and look for somebody that person can beat, okay? Has to be good enough to pass my approval or whichever state's approval, but has to be reasonable but beatable, okay? And those people in boxing are called opponents. That's the term that we use. And then when you get a really good opponent, they're called the gatekeeper, okay? And we have some of them in the various weight classes, and then they move up. And so this goes on and on and on until you get an undefeated fighter, okay? This is what's happening. And then over here on the other side of the country or nearby, you have another promoter doing essentially the same thing, okay? And they're doing this. Now, all these people that have been beat all the time, they're attracting just loss after loss after loss, and they've got really no kind of recourse. They've got no promoter. They're not being promoted, but the undefeated fighter is. Now, at the end of this rainbow, all this way up, the sanctioning bodies have issued like the regional belt, the this and that belt, whatever belt. They have a lot of belts. Let me give you, sir. In 1996, when the Professional Boxing Act was passed, 619 titles were issued across the world by the sanctioning organizations. Last year, that number was 2,156. Okay, so you saw an increase in the number of titles. It's good for the fighters like to have them and the whole thing, but they're charging every time the thing they charge for the belt. That system that I just explained to you is exploitive in a way. Now, under a UBO system, if a promoter has both sides of the card, their financial interest shifts. Their business model shifts from wanting to make sure that their fighter wins to making a competitive match that the public will want to see, because it's driven by, it's a different model. So you want to have like a fight that people will want to tune in and see. The first model is like, well, you've got a fight that's like kind of okay. People might tune in, but you're searching for the mega fight at the end where you have like a big champion that's won all this stuff versus the other promoter's big champion and you promote a big thing. They're just different business models. But when the focus shifts from trying to protect your fighter and getting the opponent beat to making competitive matches, in my view, that would be good for boxing. And one final caveat to that goes along with it. Let's say you've got one of these fighters that are promoted and they take a loss. Okay? Their earnings potential just plummets the next go-round, like the next fight. It just goes so far down. Whereas under a system where they've got both sides of the card, if the guy loses, so what? They've got a contract. They know what they're going to get the next time. This is what's happening in boxing, and I think that adding a UBO model, not taking away the current system, because remember, there's a difference here, sir. This is for U.S. boxers. This is for American boxers, okay? These sanctioning organizations deal throughout the world, so we're dealing with world titles. And this is for American, and I think that the name of the bill, the Revival Act, the Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act, I believe it will revive American boxing by providing competition for our fighters. Okay. Hope that answers your question, sir.
Yeah, well done. So thank you, and I'll yield back the rest of my time.
What is the difference between UBO and the present sanctioning organizations?
Well, the current sanctioning organizations, they rate fighters. There's four of them. There's the World Boxing Council, the IBF. The World Boxing Council is based in Mexico City. The IBF's based in New Jersey. The WBO, that's the World Boxing Organization. They're based in Puerto Rico. And the WBA, I think they're Medellin, Colombia. I think that's right.
That's what day it is.
Yeah, I think they're Medellin, Colombia. And they rank the fighters, but the promoters, sir, have to like they work with the sanction organizations to like.
What does the UBO do that they don't do them?
Well, the UBO would essentially be the promoter, and that's kind of the big difference. Is the UBO would be ranking their own fighters that have both sides of the card. And there's a lot of benefit to that, sir, because you don't have to wait to ask who can fight who, okay? Like, there's all these mandatories that happen once a year or about annually. So what happens is you have like 4 different lists. You have 4 groups, and there's 4 different lists. Now, some of these people are the same on the list, but a whole lot of them aren't. So, like, if somebody gets a mandatory, you have to, the champion is supposed to, gets a letter and says, hey, congratulations, you're the champion. You've got like 6 weeks or 8 weeks to negotiate a deal with the #1 contender or our mandatory champion. And it sounds great when you say it like, but it's not what happens in reality. A lot of times what happens is if there's a better fight for financial reasons, they'll try to do what's called a special exception or a special.
How would a UBO fix that?
A UBO would have their fighters fight the fight that they believe is reasonable for the rankings. They would have like a probably. I got to think that they're going to do it the other way that the other group does it, and have the media do the rankings. So like it's like, I'm older, but the newspaper or the internet media people would do the rankings, and you wouldn't have to be forced into a mandatory. You could have the champion fight the #6 if that made sense. But most of the time, it is the #1 contender versus the champion.
Now, does the bill anticipate a specific organization to be a UBO, and can others qualify?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's going to be
Absolutely what?
I think that absolutely there will be multiple UBOs in a short amount of time if this bill were to pass. I would think of 3 or 4 would pop up within 3 or 4 years of this bill passing, because it will take a little bit of time to get going, but at least 3 or 4.
Now, there's several provisions in here, minimum amount per round, insurance requirements and things like that. Is it better to do that by statute or by regulation, where it'd be easier to update the amount per round or the insurance coverage or the kinds of health requirements? Would it be better to do that in statute or by regulation?
Congressman Scott, that is an excellent question, sir. That is an excellent question he just asked. We've been trying, look, we did it by regulation the first time and by statute the second time, but we're one state. We had I think 90 or almost 100 boxing events last year, but that's one. To get the entire country on the same page of a minimum, we have to have the United States Congress do this, because 50 state legislatures or thereabouts are not going to take this up, or 50 state commissions aren't going to run regulations. It's going to take Congress.
Thank you, unless, Mr. Chairman, you had a national commission. Mr. Chairman, my time has expired.
Can I just have half a second to address that issue? John McCain was moving toward preparing a bill that would create a national commission which would do exactly what Mr. Scott, Congressman Scott, was talking about. Obviously, he got partially diverted by presidential politics and then, unfortunately, an illness. But that is something that this Congress could do and, in my opinion, should explore.
Thank you.
Thank you.